Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's a running or an episode of Running with Laz. It's actually been a while since I've done an interview. I had interviewed Chelsea Hall back in March, and at that time we chatted a little bit about her, training and a number of different things. But I think what was upcoming for her was the Boston Marathon. So I wanted to have an opportunity to circle back with her and chat about her experience there. Obviously, I think most of us know how bad the weather was. So you had firsthand experience. So Chelsea, thank you for joining me. Hope you're doing well. So just give me a quick update on how you've been, and then I guess we could get into your great experience at the 2018 Boston Marathon.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited to do this interview today.
So how was it? I know training, I think, probably went pretty well for you. Did you kind of feel like the training was okay and that you were just, ready to blast off in Boston? And I think everybody's, hopeful PR just, wasn't going to happen that day. But how did you do? How was your training running up to it? Because I think when we talked in March, I thought you felt things were going pretty well. But just, give me an update on where you kind of thought you were and leading up to the race, how you thought you were going to do. And then, just kind of walk me through that day, because I'm sure everybody had a tough day that day.
Yes. So leading up to the race, training went, I couldn't have asked for kind of better training. Maybe if the winter would have been a little less harsh, that would have been nice, but might have prepared me a little bit for the elements of the race. But just made sure I focused on getting my long runs in and hill training, and then doing the little things to stay healthy so that I could compete on race day. So training leading up to the race went pretty well. The race itself was very interesting. I remember
the
Friday
least,
and
right?
Saturday before the race, I was looking at the weather and it was just from one extreme to the other. I'm like, oh my gosh. And it just kept getting worse. And I'm like, oh my gosh, was kind of putting a damper on the race. But I just kind of shut that mindset off. And I had a goal. I wanted to break 3 hours, and just kind of kept that in mind, and just tried not to let the weather get to me. So I'd say the hardest part was actually right before the race. So they bus you out and you're sitting in these fields for about, I think it was 2 hours before the race. I got there at 7, and my race didn't go off until 10. So luckily I was dressed pretty warm. I had a lot of layers on, 5 layers, and a big heavy winter coat. And everyone was just kind of huddled together under these tents, and it's raining, it's windy, and you're very cold, you're shivering, but you're all just kind of trying to stay as warm as you could. So I was so excited for the race to actually start, because I knew that I'd warm up within the first couple miles and would finally be warm. So when the race finally went off, I actually left an extra layer on top still on, because I'm like, well, it'll keep me dry for a little bit, because it was coming down pretty hard at the start there. And then at about mile 2, I had a raincoat off and just raincoat on, and just pulled that off there. And that helped to keep me pretty dry for the first little bit. And then just the rest of the race, just honestly, just put my head down and ran. A lot of the pictures I'm looking down, because I wasn't wearing a visor or anything, and the rain was just coming down at you, coming across from you. So I just kind of put my head down and ran, and tried to just kind of keep picking people off, because I was in the back of my corral a little bit. So I was passing people the whole race, which was kind of, a good mental thing, because you're not getting passed. So just passing other people kind of builds momentum and stuff. And then I just had, everyone told me don't go out very fast. So I kind of just kept that in my mindset, and, just tried to feel good the first 6 miles. And then just started to slowly pick it up from there. And then Heartbreak Hill, just I knew all the hype leading up to that. but it wasn't too bad compared to the hills that I've been training on over here in Medina. So it wasn't too bad. And then just the last, I knew once I got over Heartbreak Hill, it was pretty much all downhill from there. So that's when I really picked it up. And I think my last 2 miles were my fastest 2 miles. So I was surprised about that. But all in all, I was happy with the race and the time, and considering the weather conditions. So
Now, how long did you have to wait at the starting line? Do you kind of, because of your speed and stuff, did you get to start like right behind the elite runners, or how did that work? Or did you have to wait like a half hour after this? Probably not that long.
I didn't start with the elites. No, the elite women went off at 9:30, I think. And then I went off right after the elite men. I was in, I can't even remember the wave number. I don't even remember, but it was probably like, I think it was 5 minutes after like the official start that I like crossed the starting line. I think that's what, I think it was like 5 minutes, I believe. Okay.
Yeah, I forgot. I think that the elite women start, well ahead of the elite men, and then everybody kind of starts after the elite men.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're like one of the, the top runners, or depending on what wave you're in, hopefully you get to start pretty quickly. Now, was it cold that morning, or was it just the rain that was bad?
No, it was pretty cold. It was about 30 degrees at the start when and then it was pretty cold like all throughout the race. People were dropping out because of like hypothermia and stuff. They said the medical tents were the most that they've been, like the busiest that they've been since the whole Boston Marathon. So yeah, it was pretty crazy weather conditions.
Wow. So what was your official time? Did you break 3 hours?
I did. I ran 2:57 and 2:57 and 33 seconds, I think. I'm not exactly sure on the seconds, but
nice. Now, was that your goal time, or did you beat your goal time?
Yes. So I had like a main goal of just breaking 3 hours. So I got that one, and then the weather would have been a little bit better. Maybe I could have ran like a 2:55. It was like my big goal, but I was happy with the 2:57. So
I was just going to ask you, if the weather was better, do you think you could have ran, considerably faster, or do you kind of feel like the weather didn't hamper you all that much? Because I know, a lot of these faster runners at just even local races. I don't know any elite runners other than maybe, Nils Antonio or Sarah, Horball, who just won the Cleveland Marathon. Mm-hmm. But they typically say that bad weather doesn't really bother them as much. I think a lot of people, like I would sit here and think, oh my God, I probably would have dropped out after 5 miles. But, as you're going along, it probably doesn't really, bother you as much as what you would think it would.
Yes. For me, the weather didn't affect me too much. I think a little bit it did though. Just like the wind and then like the rain and everything might have slowed me down just a little bit. But I think I trained for my training kind of was pointing at like a 2:55, 2:57 around that area. So I think I don't think I would have ran too much faster, maybe like a couple minutes, but I don't think it would have been anything too much faster. So.
Well, I'm glad that you met your goal. I mean, 2:57 is great. I mean, I've saw a lot of runners on Instagram that I follow, and people that are normally 3-hour marathoners, and they added like almost 20 minutes to their time. So I think ultimately I think it's more of a mental thing than anything else. I mean, look at the winner.
I think it's very mental, because I just literally just told myself mentally, I'm not letting the weather stop me. I had a goal, and I think running is like 90% mental. If you kind of get in your head and like tell yourself like you can do this, or if you tell yourself you can't do it, I think whatever you tell yourself mentally is kind of what's going to happen there.
Right. So. Yeah, and I can't remember, what was the winner's name? I can't remember her name offhand.
Des Linden.
Yeah, Des Linden.
Yes.
I think at the end of the day, when you start to think about, all the elite Kenyan runners and Ethiopians and Americans, I mean, Shailene Flanagan and people like that, where, you think that they may have had a bad day, but they still would have been up in the lead. And Des just kind of, I think it came down to pure strength. Who,
Mm-hmm.
given the conditions, was going to be the best in those conditions. And of course she proved it, because the times were slow, I think, for a marathon race for women, but yet
Yeah.
she did phenomenal. I don't care what anybody
Mm-hmm.
says, at the end of the day she is the winner of the race.
Yes. That story's incredible. Just how
Right.
she was helping out Shalane and Flanagan, and then she was almost thinking of dropping out, and then she goes and just wins the whole thing. So that's a true
Right.
inspiration. So
What was her time? Her time was like 2:38 or something like that,
I
or
2:39, I believe. I
okay.
think. Yes.
Boy, you weren't that far off. Did you have any aspirations of winning that race? You're like, oh man, if I could have ran like 20 minutes faster, I would have had
Yeah.
this
Right.
race. That's awesome. So I'm glad your training and everything went well. Did you kind of feel like you were just, ready to go, everything like nutritionally and all that? Did you really feel good at the start, other than the
Yeah.
bad weather?
Yes. I think leading up to the race, I did my last long run, I think 3 weeks before. And then kind of just tapered from there. I did a 3-week taper, which I think helped me. I felt super fresh, leading up to it. And then I felt great, throughout the race, honestly, until the last half mile is when I started kind of hitting a wall a little bit. But yeah, I felt fresh and ready to go and ready for a challenge. So
Now, was that your first marathon that you ran?
no, I did Columbus in
Oh,
2016
that's
to
what I thought.
qualify for
Okay.
Boston. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that you had ran before. I guess if
Yes.
this was your first marathon, probably the experience of raining and stuff like that would have been more daunting, but physically you kind of knew what to expect, at least.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you have, coming up? Are you doing the Medina half marathon tomorrow?
Yep, I'll be out there tomorrow running. So
Nice. Did
yep,
you
I'm
run it?
excited.
Did you run it last year? Because I think you've won it one year.
Yes, I did run it last year. Yep.
And that was the year you came in first overall female?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So is your goal to be first overall winner this year? Going to beat both the men and the women?
No, I don't think I can beat the men, but I'll give it a shot, I guess.
Right. Well, the thing is tomorrow, I think the weather is expected to be pretty hot. So,
Yes.
that's kind of brutal. I think out of anything else, I mean, I am not a hot weather runner at all. I'm not fast either. So I'm just glad that I'm out running to begin with. But,
Mm-hmm.
that is for me is the worst type of weather is hot weather to run in. I
Yes.
can deal with anything else, but not the heat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Last year it was perfect conditions. It was nice and cool. And this year, yeah, it is supposed to be a little bit hotter, but
yeah.
hopefully it starts at 6:45 in the morning. So hopefully we'll avoid a bit of the hot heat there. So
6:45 in the morning. I guess it probably should start about that early to avoid,
yes.
a lot of the heat. So now, do you just
Yes.
run from home right to the finish or right to the starting line and then just go?
Um,
Because you're probably not too far away from there,
I'm
right?
not far at all. I'm a 5-minute drive from the starting line, but I'll probably drive over versus run. So
I was going to say, you could just use that as a little warm up.
yes, I could. You're right.
So any ideas on what you're shooting for tomorrow? Is it just a good race? I mean, I'm assuming you kind of want to defend your title.
Yes. I'm honestly just looking at it as a hard long run. Since Boston, I've only been doing easy runs. My body took a little bit of time to kind of recover after the race there, from being sore and then just overall fatigued from the marathon. So I've just started to feel myself the past maybe week and a half there.
Oh,
So I
okay.
haven't gotten any workouts or anything in since Boston. So just honestly looking at it as a hard long run and just getting out there and having fun and enjoying running. So
Yeah,
yep.
I was going to say Boston's just barely over a month ago. So not, I don't know. How long does it normally, I mean, when you ran Boston or when you ran Columbus, kind of the same thing, felt about took you about a month to recover?
And actually for Columbus, I was feeling fine within a week. I must not have ran hard enough.
See, it's the weather. The weather
But
did it.
yes, I don't know. I guess maybe because Boston was a lot of hills and downhills and stuff, and I could barely walk the week after Boston. My quads were just so torn up. So that took a while to kind of get back and not very becoming like less stiff and everything. And then I was just very like tired, I guess, just a lot on your body. So.
Well, see, that's I know somebody else who ran Boston as well. A couple times now she's ran it, and same thing, because I had asked her about, Heartbreak Hill. Is it, as daunting as everybody kind of says it is? And I know, a few other people that have ran it, Sherry Geiger, John Pavlik, all these people from Medina area. And they said it's not, just like you're saying, it's not necessarily the hill itself. It's the beating that you take before you actually even get to the hill, because they say the course is pretty steadily downhill. And then once you get to that part of it, it's just, you just kind of feel it, I guess, from all the beating that you have taken. It's funny, like the elite marathoners, they just fly up this thing like it's nothing, or, whatever.
Yes.
So I guess a lot of people do end up saying, it's Heartbreak Hill just because, oh my gosh. But, around here, I don't know if you've ever ran like around Hinckley and,
yes.
hills on, I think it's Ledge Road through there, not Heartbreak Hill, but they call it Effie. I guess we kind of know what that means, but that's a pretty daunting hill there. I've ran that loop a couple of times, and I thought there's probably nothing more that is any worse than that, I would think. But
yes, for sure.
Right. So did Dr. Leo give you like any time off to recover from the race? Now, the good thing is you have all that equipment there that you can kind of use to help you recover.
Yes, I definitely used the Normatec recovery the week after the race. That helped a lot. And then just, making sure I got enough sleep and refueling and nutrition and everything. So
right.
That's it, really.
See, that's you can give that a plug. I mean, that is an awesome thing to have where, your muscles are sore and you just kind of use everything that you guys have there. So people, when you watch this and you're trying to recover, just, hook up with Chelsea and the team over there, man. They'll get you ready to roll again. For
sure. I also dry needled my quads a little bit.
Did you really?
To get blood flow going to them, and that seemed to really help them, kind of help speed down the recovery process there. So that's another thing.
Now, you didn't dry needle yourself, did you?
I did.
No way. How could you say that?
Yes.
Looking at the back of your calves, making sure that needle is in there right. You could ask one of your counterparts there.
I did it.
I'm sure Dr. Leo would have helped you out.
For sure, yeah.
Right. So how's things going at work? Things going pretty well? You guys are pretty busy there?
Yes.
Nice. So what do you have, besides tomorrow? What's like your next goal marathon, and something that you're, going to shoot for, breaking 255 or, whatever you want to do? Any, big goal races coming up?
Yeah. So immediately after, like, we were driving home from the Boston Marathon, and I was already kind of trying to figure out when would be my next race and everything. I'm on like a marathon high right now, I guess. So I will be doing Chicago in the beginning of October, and hoping to run pretty fast there. So we'll see.
Yeah, my buddy, I don't know if you know Nils Antonio or not. He is he ran for the Jamaican team back in 1996 at the Olympics. And so I interviewed him a couple times, and he's, my age, about 55 or whatever. So his goal is to break the marathon world record in our age group, which I think is like 2 hours and 35 minutes, somewhere around there. So I kind of keep following his, all his updates on Instagram. I actually have an interview coming up with him as well.
Awesome.
So, I mean, anytime somebody could make that type of an accomplishment, that's, fantastic. And being he's my age, it really gives me hope, not to do a marathon, but, to hopefully bring my times down. So, yeah.
Yes. It's good to surround
stuff.
Yourself by people with similar goals. So,
yeah. And I think he was talking about doing it at Chicago, but I think he chose Columbus. to do
Oh,
it in.
awesome.
Yeah, because I think, if you're trying to go for a world record and something like that, you probably want to have a course that's really conducive to, having that fast time. So,
Yes.
like I said, a lot of the, Olympic or elite runners, if they try to go for a marathon world record, they usually try it at London, because I think London is historically a fast marathon
Okay.
course. So,
Gotcha.
yeah. So
Very nice.
are you doing like any shorter races throughout the year? You normally stay away from the shorter races, don't you? I mean, you
I
kind of
mean,
focus on longer
I'll
ones.
probably do I'll probably do a half marathon leading up to Chicago. I'm not really sure. I haven't looked that far into like which one or anything, but I mean, I don't typically have been doing like any other like shorter races
Right.
than just sticking to like doing the marathon and then getting a half in there before. I might jump into like a 4th of July race or something like
Right.
fun like that, but
Well, there's the I think the River Run half marathon is usually early September. Would that be too close
okay.
to the marathon? Because um, that's October, like middle of October when they do
Mm-hmm.
Chicago, right?
Beginning of October is Chicago. Yeah, first weekend there.
Oh, okay. So
So
probably a half marathon in September, early September would probably be a little too
yes,
close, right?
probably early September. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, the other one too is, I don't know if you saw that, the Hofbra House. They have Hermes has that. They do the Hofbra House. They used to do just the 10K and the 5K.
10K.
Last year they added the half
Uh-huh.
marathon, and that's in August. So
Oh,
that may
that
be
might be a
something.
good one.
It's all flat too, because it just goes
Oh,
like out to the east side and then comes
gotcha.
back. So that might be one that you might want to
Yeah,
consider.
I'll have to look into that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll
Sounds
give
like
you
a
some
good one.
training tips. I'll help you out.
Yeah, anything.
No, I should be getting training tips from you. All right. Well, I do, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. Congratulations. That was just a fantastic time that you had. And I'm glad that you actually, were able to hit your goal time, and
Yes.
just, look forward to just continuing to follow up on, how you're doing, and, things that you were able to accomplish. So,
Mm-hmm.
all
Thank
right.
you so
Well,
much for having me.
yeah, no problem. This was another episode of Running with Laz, and thank you, Chelsea Hall, for taking the time out to chat with us.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.